but it just wouldn't go away. The sciatica pain I was getting with it was unreal.
Download the AllStar app. Make your picks for UFC fights, challenge your friends, level up and win prizes. Link in description. Get it now.
Did you watch the last PFL event in Paris?
Yes, I did actually. I saw the highlights of it. I didn't watch the full event, but yeah, I did see it.
Well, I guess then you saw the main event and how that all ended with the splinter in the toe thing. Like, wasn't that the oddest thing you've ever seen in fighting?
Yeah, it was crazy. Part of me felt sorry for him because I believe that he wanted to fight, but the rules are the rules. If you're looking at the referee and pointing to your foot, you're kind of declaring an injury, and it wasn't caused due to a foul. So I believe Mark Goddard did the right thing. He's an excellent referee, one of the best in the game. So yeah, it was unfortunate. I would have liked to have seen the fight play out.
Yeah, me too. But it's a splinter in the toe. You know what I mean? That doesn't make any sense. Like, you got guys fighting with broken toes, broken fingers, broken hands, broken everything. You know what I mean? And still go to there and not complaining about anything.
Yeah, it was a bit crazy. I don't know if it was he just like kind of noticed it and couldn't get his mindset back to the fight or what. Because even his opponent was looking down at his foot, kind of saying like, "What are we doing? Are we fighting?" And yeah, but like you say, I myself broke my hand in my fight, and you kind of know you've done it, but you're a bit numb, so you push through it and then deal with it after. But yeah, it was crazy. It was a shame.
It was. Is that the worst injury you've ever had in a fight? Is a broken hand?
No, I would say the worst injury I ever had with my fight was my last three fights. Sorry, my last fight I had it fixed, but the last two previous to that, I'd suffered really bad with sciatica. I had a herniated disc, very common injury with MMA fighters from the wrestling and the lifting, but it just wouldn't go away. The sciatica pain I was getting with it was unreal, and typically Bellator had matched me up with three wrestlers and grapplers previous fights, so yeah, it was very difficult to train for those opponents. But then in between the Chris Gonzalez fight and Mike Hamill fight, I had like a micro surgery to correct it. But I felt like because it was the last event, Bellator 301, I was kind of pushed heavily into fighting on that. Ideally, I would have liked to have fight a bit later on than November, maybe end of December or early January. But obviously, I didn't realise all this was happening with the PFL merger and stuff. So I kind of fought the Mike Hamill fight still recovering from the surgery. But like that by far is the worst injury I've ever had in my career. I mean, I've torn my ACL, my MCL, like I've had a lot of injuries. I've torn intercostal muscles, but that is just the pain would never go away. I was dealing with it daily. It was very depressing. It was hard.
It's great to hear that you got that fixed. And last year, 2023, outside of the surgery, well, the surgery was good because you got your back fixed, but the performances though against these two rising contenders, you can say, man, and you knocked them off pretty easily. Like, how do you feel about what you've done, what you did in
I feel really proud of what I did. Like the performances really. I mean, the Chris Gonzalez one, and this is no disrespect to him because he's a tough competitor, but I really was. I mean, I was screaming it into the camera when I come out of the cage. I really was at 60%. I couldn't wrestle that whole camp, and I'm going in to fight a very elite Greco-Roman wrestler. But it's not wrestling, is it? It's MMA, and like sometimes I think these wrestlers or these strikers or they forget that. So I was able to prepare mentally and physically as best I could, but I truly was only 60%. But yeah, two very good upcoming contenders that they're right there, in the mix. So I was really proud, and I was really proud that I I know I'm very tough mentally, and I've got the biggest heart ever. You really have got to stop me to beat me. I've got no quit in me. So I'm always going to be a challenge for anybody, whoever you put me in there with. But I think a massive credit of my progression and development in the last 2 to 3 years, especially is from the move I made to Team Renegade in Birmingham with Leon Edwards and all the guys. So that's definitely a big factor.
For sure, man. But hey, all that development, you got to be able to go in the cage and put it into use, right? And that's what you did in the last year. And if nobody knows who you are now, they do, right? Because
Yeah.
you got that highlight too. You know what I mean? The head kick with the right hand. That's just beautiful. I think it's probably one of the best knockouts of the year from Bellator.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I know. Like, there was only on that card. There was only me and Jason Jackson got knockouts on the final ever Seoul Bellator. Because now it's changed to the Challenger Series. So it was nice to end the year and end the journey with like Bellator Seoul with that finish against a tough guy. Who doesn't get finished. I mean, he went the full fight with the champ Nurmagomedov. He's very very good, Mikey. So. Well, it was quite funny when I looked at the scorecards after. I was 2 rounds down, so technically I needed the finish. I thought it was 1 round apiece live in the fight, but I'm always looking for the finish. It's just as you get higher up through the levels, it's not always that easy to find.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, man. Whenever people, I think they're too spoiled with finishes. I think fans are too spoiled with finishes. They don't understand how hard it is to get a finish, especially like landing a head kick. You know what I mean? It's very rarely people land head kicks. Like if you look at the
Yeah.
percentage of head kicks thrown to land it, it's very low.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, it's great to see that you're coming off that big win against Mike Hamill. Was that last event 301? Was it weird that whole fight week? Because that's what people were saying. Like everybody was like all down, like it's the end of Bellator. Did you feel that?
There was definitely a different energy to the event. I think people were just. Well, I believe, I mean, only the top bosses of each company know, but I think people were still like, what's happening? What's going on after this? Have I got a job? Is the merger even happening? There've been all the rumors and stuff, but I think it's terrible. Actually, I forgot his name. The guy who owns PFL. He said, yeah, no, the PFL guy Don. He said. He said on Ariel Helwani like a week or so later, they only signed and finalised the deal the day after the Bellator event. So everybody was just a bit like, I don't know, wasn't the same energy. There was an air of like worry, if anything. People didn't know whether they got jobs following that last show. So I did get that vibe. But I mean, everything, credit to them, everything still ran really smoothly. The event was busy, sold out from what I can gather, and we all put on good shows, and as well. Like, I mean, credit to Jason Jackson again. He had a brilliant win against Amasov, who was unstoppable at the time. So it was a good night of a good night of fights.
So the merger happened the day after officially, right? Signed the papers and all that. For you, moving forward, it's kind of the unknown, right? Were there talks of you going into the $1 million season, or were you just like, I'm going to stay with the Bellator events and just fight, and chase after the title?
No, so I'll be honest. I pushed for my manager and my team. We really pushed for the $1 million tournament. Hard as well. I was shouting it all on social media. The manager, I had my manager. He was on the case constantly because like Bellator have been great. They've been such an amazing promotion to fight for, and it's well known. But I was only getting 2 fights a year, and this is my full-time job. And I'm 10 years deep or 11 years deep into my pro career. So I really want to get 3 to 4 fights a year. And I'm always in the gym and I'm always ready to do that. It's just perhaps I don't think they had the availability in shows. So I pushed for PFL because potentially I was guaranteed up to 4 fights in a year. Obviously, the $1 million at the end, if I win all 4, is a bonus as well. But I quite like the ability to be able to fight more regular. But for whatever reason, it didn't happen. So they've kept me on Bellator Challenger Series. But as you'll have seen recently, there's a lot of the guys from the rankings in Bellator gone across to PFL. So I believe it's opened up a fast path to the title for me. So ultimately, like my goal is I want to be I will be a world champion in a big organisation. So we'll see what happens following this win next week.
Yeah, next week, man. Bellator 302 in Belfast. You're taking on Manoel Sousa. I was kind of confused when they announced this fight, man, because the year that you had last year, I was like, they gotta give this guy someone, up there, at least top 15, top 10. You know what I mean? Like, what were you confused a little bit?
I think they're still trying to figure out where everyone lies in the rankings. With all this, I think there's 4 or 5 lightweights from the top 10 now moved across. Um, and then there was the ban with Nurmagomedov. I didn't know whether he was going to retain the belt or it was going to be a vacant belt, but they've announced that now. Shabliy and Nurmagomedov will be fighting in May. I think they've got me, Alfie Davis, Musayev, and I think they've brought Manuel across from the PFL Challenger Series. I think they're looking to see who they want to push on into that title contention area out of us 4 next week. I believe I'll get an exciting win next week, and that's going to push me right up. I would be ready if the opportunity would arise to later on in the year fight for the belt, but if not, give me whoever they think deserves it, and I'll prove why I deserve it more. But yeah, I mean, sometimes the ranking systems in Bellator have been a bit questionable. To go back to your question, I've often thought that. I mean, I'm 6 fights undefeated now, and I've fought nothing but killers in my last 3, 4 fights. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything to do with that. It's out of my control. All I can do is keep turning up and keep winning.
That's it. That's it. Sousa, man, what do you think of him and his fighting style?
He's a dangerous guy. We've studied him. The whole team studied him. I've watched him a lot individually on my own. More so earlier on in camp, and then I let the coaches tailor the camp for me. Yeah, he definitely brings some danger and some threat, and I need to be fully switched on in the fight. He's got good boxing. He's got a very good submission threat. He's got quite a crazy ground game. He'll bail on position to attack submission. So that brings a different threat than your typical MMA grappler, where they're looking to keep you in position and ground and pound, and if they take a sub if it's there. But yeah, he's a very emotional fighter. He fights with his heart. He's tough. I think what the defining factor between the two of us is going to be is, I think, the experience. When I look at his resume since 2021, he's had 6 fights, which is over half of his fights, and there's only one of those gone to a decision, which was his last one, a very close split decision. The rest is finished very quick. I've been in there with elite NCAA wrestlers and black belts and world champion Greco level wrestlers, and I've had hard long 3 rounds with them. So I think my experience and just my in-cage time will be the defining factor as to the way the fight goes, especially as the fight goes on. And I do respect, though, he's got very big punching power, he's got a good submission threat, and I need to be switched on from the get-go. But yeah, I mean, it was a strange matchup. I would have liked to, if they'd have said, oh, you got AJ McKee, whoever wins is going to get the title. That's the kind of route I was expecting to go. But I think, as I said, they're still figuring things out, aren't they, with the way the land lies this year. So
he's undefeated. You went your first, I believe, 5 fights without losing. And when you're on a winning streak and you're undefeated, is there a sense of arrogance in yourself?
I believe so, yeah. I do believe so. You do think you're invincible, but you're going to come up against that challenge, and then it's going to be a case of what do you do then? So I remember feeling that. I did lose one amateur fight. I had 10 fights. I was 9-1. But then when I went pro, I fought the guy that I lost to at amateur for my 3rd pro fight, and I beat him. And as you say, I went 5-0, and I did think, well, I'm invincible. Nobody could touch me. I had experienced my first loss, and these losses are where you grow from. I've got 4 losses on my record, and all against worthy opponents, and you really do grow from those losses. He hasn't experienced that yet. I actually question respectfully the level of opponents he's also fought as well. I believe that when you look at the two schedules or rosters, mine and his, you can just see the difference in level of opponents. You know, my last 6 fights, or 7 fights, has been at the highest level on Bellator, whereas, as I said, his last 6 fights, which is over half of his fight experience. I mean, the smaller shows, I have no doubt they're still decent shows, but it's just a different level fighting at the. You know, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him, you know, to retain that zero. There's no pressure on me. I'm just going to go in there and perform, and the result will look after itself.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a big fight in that you get to establish your position in the division by beating this guy. How do you expect yourself to perform?
Really good. I honestly, like, touch wood. This is the first camp with, for my last 3 fights, with zero back pain, which is just a blessing. And I wake up and I say to my coach, he's like, it just doesn't feel right. If something doesn't feel right, I'm not in pain, because I've got so used to preparing for fights in pain, and I've got good pain threshold. I'm not. You know, I'm not a pussy. I'm not one to but I really was in pain, and it's been great. I've made some leaps and bounds this camp. I've brought on a new strength and conditioning coach because I was able to push a lot harder in that. So I feel fitter and stronger than I've ever felt. I look in better shape because of it. Yeah, and you've only got to look. Like the results. You always want to win, but Leon Edwards, who's like works with me, he'll be there cornering me. He always says. He says the result you want to win, obviously. He says, but he always like looks at your performance, and he says, look at your performance every fight since you've moved to Renegade, 6 performances back to back. Every single time I step in there, it's got better and better. So I'm only expecting the same again. There's no reason why it wouldn't be better than my last one. If anything, like, well, I don't want to jinx myself, but it's like guaranteed to be better. It's the first camp I've had no back pain, so yeah, I'm really excited to fight. My weight's good, my mentality's good. The camp's been excellent. We've got a solid plan, and I'm looking forward to welcoming Manoel to high level fighting in Bellator.
One more question, man. Usman, Shabliy, who wins that fight? That's a close fight. I think it's going to be interesting.
It is. It is. It is. So I personally think Shabliy will win. I think he utilises his whole game a little bit better than Usman does. But Usman has been able to win fights only using small parts of his game. Like, I mean, you watch him when he beat Mike Hamill. He's kicking, he's excellent. I do rate them both. They're very, very high level. But I feel like Shabliy, he uses his whole game a bit better. But is it a case that Usman hasn't had to yet? It's going to be an interesting fight. I'm actually probably going to try and get out there and watch it live. I'm hoping to make a big statement in Belfast and be cage-side watching who my next opponent is. But yeah, I'm going to go with Shabliy for the decision. I think I don't know if he'll stop him, but it's going to be an excellent fight. It's an exciting fight. 2 of the best lightweights in the world currently. So, and I've got my eyes very closely on them.
Yeah, man. Before they throw down, you will throw down March 22nd, Bellator 302 Belfast. Tim, thank you so much for taking the time, man. And yeah, man, all the best, man. I'm excited to see what you can do this year.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.